You mentioned in the first episode of Understanding America how the Spanish people were astonished by how healthy the natives of the Americas were, the Caribbean region. I also noticed that figures like the Vikings or Columbus seem to live relatively short lives. How was no, was this short life expectancy a common issue across Europe during that period? Or was it specific to certain groups? What were the main causes behind such limited lifespans? Um, so when the Spaniards came first reached the Americas and saw the natives, they were astonished, like you say, and I mentioned this in the first episode. They were astonished to see how healthy the natives were. The natives were tall people compared to the Europeans. The Europeans were short, the natives were tall, the natives were muscular, the Spaniards were not. And the natives were mostly almost naked and they had great skin, great overall great health, but they did not have swords and iron, and they did not have that murderous attitude that the Spaniards had. Uh, and the writer of the book that I'm referring to, and other writers as well, say that the Europeans were filthy. Many Europeans did not ever bathe in their whole lifetime. I mean, I'm not making it up. Read the books, and uh, and there's a whole lot more. So it looks like European customs were such that hygiene was not prioritized. Surprise, surprise. Imagine the smell, I would say. But yeah, the European customs of the time were such that hygiene was not prioritized. Bathing was unheard of, and that obviously will cause health issues and a shorter lifespan. Um, some of it would be because of the cold climate in northern Europe. So one could understand if the Vikings did not bathe frequently, because the temperatures are usually frigid in Scandinavia. So yeah, that would act as a so the temperature would act as a deterrent against bathing frequently. But when it comes to Spain, it's not that cold. It's a reasonably pleasant climate in Spain. Doesn't freeze very frequently there. It's usually pretty warm and balmy climate. So why did the Spaniards insist on not bathing, and why were they so filthy compared to the Indians? Compared to the Indians, as in the natives of the Americas. I don't know. Look, I don't know what the cultural aspects were, but that's just what we know. So I think this was not limited to specific European groups. I think it looks like it was common across Europe to not bathe and to have very questionable standards of hygiene, and that would obviously cause life expectancy to not be that great in Europe. And you can see other examples and other evidence of this. I mean, the Black Death, which was an epidemic of the bubonic plague, it originated in China and eventually made its way all across Eurasia, all the way to Europe, all the way to the westernmost parts of Europe. And it spread because of filth. It spread because European cities, towns, villages were so filthy. You would have rats everywhere, and rats everywhere, and the rats were the were the carriers of the ticks, which were the vectors of the disease. Now, it's astonishing that the Black Death, the bubonic plague, traveled all the way from China, all the way to Western Europe, the westernmost part of Europe, and completely bypassed India. How does that happen? India and China have always had great contacts, lots of trade, lots of cultural relations, lots of people to people relations back in the day. I'm not talking about today, historically. So, how did the Black Plague, the bubonic plague, completely bypass India? Because India had different standards of hygiene compared to Europe. So, it was very easy for the plague to proliferate in Europe, but it simply couldn't gain a footing in India. Eventually, you had plague epidemics in India under British occupation, when Indians were no longer free to live their lifestyle as they used to. So I think it was a lifestyle choice. It was a cultural. I don't know if it's culture, if it's lifestyle. Today, Europe is very clean, but it wasn't that way in the past.